now the question of Miriam, the sister of Aaron. We go down that Jewish line of thought a little bit more. But first, John of Damascus mentions Mary, sister of Moses and Aaron, and just leave it like that. You probably have seen that passage there. He criticizes the Ishmaelites.
Yeah.
But when we look at the Talmud, okay, through three good leaders had arisen in Israel, namely Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. And for their sake, three good things were conferred upon Israel, namely the well, the pillar of cloud, and the manna. The well for the merit of Miriam, the pillar of cloud for the merit of Aaron, the manna for the merit of Moses. When Miriam died, the well disappeared, as it is said, and Miriam died there. And immediately follows, and there was no water for the congregation, and it returned for the merit of the latter two. I'm not going further in this text, but when did the water return? That's when Moses hit the rock. Miriam is represented in the rock.
Now, are we getting into? Yeah. So is that kind of connecting with the Aphrodite idea and the black stone and all of that?
I come to that in a second. Okay.
Yeah.
The cave under the foundation stone served as a hiding place for four specific items: the ark, the manna, the rock from which the water is forthcoming, the staff, and the treasury chest. Then the ark was hid.
For those maybe who don't guess what you mean by the cave under the foundation stone, you're talking about the Temple Mount, are you?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay.
When the ark was hidden, there was hidden with it the bottle containing the manna, and that containing the sprinkling water, the staff of Aaron, with its almonds and blossoms, and the chest with the Philistines had sent as a gift to God of Israel. So we got these things there. So symbolically, the manna stands for the prophecy in the hands of Moses, the pillar of cloud for God's representative on earth. Aaron, he is the word of God as personified in Muhammad. The well is represented by the rock, the black stone, for the merit of Miriam. Moses struck this rock whence water gushed out. This event happened in Kadesh, the biblical town in which Miriam was buried. It was not just any rock, but the rock that God had pointed out for Moses, and he struck it with the staff that had been given to him by God. This is the staff of Moses and the black stone in which Miriam resides. This rock came along the journeys of the Israelites. In Kadesh, all elements come together in one place. The tent of meeting, that's a tabernacle, right? The temple, the word of God, the deceased Miriam symbolized by a rock, Moses with his staff, and Aaron who inherits the staff in his priestly function. Miriam is the temple mother, symbolizing life. The cave with the treasure is the dwelling place of God, the most important feature on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. MKH, Makkah, Mecca.
So
now,
yeah. So could you just spend a little bit on your link there with Mecca and the meaning behind it there?
Yes. Well, as you know, I'm investigating Mecca, and I've been at it for a little bit now. I probably shouldn't have touched that because it's taking too much time for a sideline. It doesn't really matter all that much. Now, the black stone, of course, if we see the importance of the black stone, right now, all of a sudden, the black stone is no longer some pagan remnant. Now, the black stone is a core Jewish symbol that probably has some divine power in it or something like that. So Mecca is probably wherever that stone is. So it appears to me that Mecca is, the stone is where the tabernacle is. So if the stone is where Mecca is, then the tabernacle is where Mecca is, and the tabernacle is mobile. we will probably see, and that's probably the main thought that we need to have. I can show where Mecca is in later times. We have multiple evidence that confuse us because they're in different places. But if we think of Mecca as the mobile tabernacle, it's not that difficult any longer, right?
Yeah.
And we can say, well, it was somewhere in near Al-Hira before Jerusalem was conquered, before Abd al-Malik. Then it was in Jerusalem, and for some reason that I haven't figured out yet, Jerusalem came out of favor. I don't know. They were probably killing each other too much up on that mountain. It moved somewhere else, and then in the 12th century, we know it's near Al-Hira again, or another location near Al-Hira. So we can trace where it goes, and we can put the finger down now that somewhere in the 14th century, it seems to all of a sudden be established down there in the actual Mecca of today. It's been in Egypt for a while, but I don't have the exact timeline together yet. But we have clear evidence. We have clear evidence that we must look at Mecca as mobile, as a tabernacle that is just moving from one place to another. And it's understandable if you're Jewish and your Temple Mount is not accessible to you, you gotta do something about it. So you just take your tabernacle somewhere else and you do it somewhere else. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter where it is, and you've just incorporated it into your pilgrimage route.
I don't think it's a coincidence that the Ugaritic word for tabernacle is koresh, according to our common friend, the linguist. I think there's something in that, given the significance of the black stone, the tabernacle, and Miriam.
He's absolutely correct. Koresh is nothing other than the temple gang. And I'm sorry for the word choice, because that's what they are, as we will see if we look at this economically. It's not pretty what's coming up, and that has nothing to do with Jews then, with Jews today, nothing at all. It just has to do with that leadership that is playing the cards very, very intelligently.
Yeah, okay.
Go a little bit deeper with Miriam. David is coming through Miriam. I guess that's all I need to say here. Yeah, I guess that's all. That Miriam is perfect for one group only, that is the Jewish Babylonian Talmudists. Nobody else would ever have understood her role before the conception of the Quran. It's hugely important. They bring the sister of Aaron along. For them, it is important that David is from Miriam. They are the ones who bring this concept into proto-Islam and the Quran.
Yeah.
So here come to your question about John of Damascus. So in his critique about the Ishmaelites, John of Damascus said that they rubbed themselves against a stone by their Shabbatan, supposedly understood as the Kaaba. He continues that the stone was the head of Aphrodite, whom they used to venerate, and whom they called Shaber, understood as Akbar, great. Now, it's actually interesting that he does not recognize them as Jews. I need to point that out, right? But if we understand what I was saying until now, then we're talking about an upper layer that plays the cards, and the lower layer is whatever it is. So they can be Nasara, they can be Christians, they can be whatever. They're being played. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, yeah.
These then were idolaters and worshippers. Now, idolaters and worshippers of the morning star and Aphrodite, whom in fact they called Shabar. Now, these idolaters and pagans and whatever these names that are giving to somebody who believes differently, we have to dismiss it as just talking bad about another religion, right? So a Catholic sometimes calls a Protestant a pagan because they don't understand the things the way they understand it, and it's just a trope basically. So we have to be careful in not reading too much into these things. So these then were the idolaters and worshippers of the morning star and Aphrodite, whom in fact they called Shabar in their own language, which means great. So until the times of Heraclius, they were plain idolaters. From that time till now, a false prophet appeared among them, surnamed Muhammad or Mahmed, who doesn't actually matter. Doesn't actually matter. I hear a lot of argument about it. Does not matter. All that matters is the chain of Muhammads. That matters. Who, having happened upon the Old and New Testament, and apparently having conversed in like manner with an Arian monk, put together his own heresy. Okay. We are looking at a great misunderstanding here.
Yeah.
The text states that the Ishmaelites called Aphrodite Shabar the Great, not the stone, and that they were star worshippers. They called Aphrodite Shabar. One of God's names that is still used in modern Judaism is Adonai. Adonai, just so happens, is Aphrodite's lover, Adonis. As her lover, she became immortal, Jehovah. Inside the Holy of Holies were two cherubims of olive wood, two griffins covered in gold. That's where we have the Pisa griffin, with their wings spread out and touching each other. They were so massive that they would span from wall to wall a total of almost 30 feet. All the walls were also carved with figures of cherubim and palm trees and open flowers inside and out. The two large griffins inside the Holy of Holies in the Temple of Jerusalem symbolize Jehovah and his consort Asherah. This goddess is, of course, linked to goddess Ishtar, which is Aphrodite. This Aphrodite is the great Shabar that John of Damascus criticizes, and thus Ephrath, aka Miriam. However, in this text, Aphrodite comes immediately before Mary, being the sister of Aaron and Moses, so John may not have understood it all. You follow this?
I followed. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with the cherubim being 30 feet. Are they not on the Ark of the Covenant? And they're much smaller than that. I know it's a minor detail, but
yes, it's in the biblical description. It's not on the Arch of the Covenant. I think it's in Kings 6:23, etc.
Okay. Yeah.
Where the Holy of Holies is described. There you have it.
I'll need to refresh my memory on that one. Okay, or refresh even.
So it turns out that Miriam per se is the signal to conquer the temple. So the Babylonians need three messianic elements: the temple, the Davidic king, and the Sadducee high priest as the spiritual supreme leader. And when I say Sadducee high priest, I think we could also say Samaritan high priest, which is kind of confusing, but I'll leave it at that for a second.
Okay.
Therefore, I say the line is the Torah. The three branches are Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. And as it was budding, its blossoms shot forth. These are the members of the Sanhedrin. So Aaron, Moses, and Miriam are the members of the Sanhedrin. Okay. Miriam is merely a symbol for the annunciation of the Savior in the temple, in the house of God itself, while she represents the temple itself. Her lineage is an element in the supreme leadership of the Sanhedrin, which is made up of branches of Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. She's literally the signal for sacking the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, as manifested in her very name, rebellion, which means Miriam. So what happens then is that Miriam is nothing other than an advanced form of a Theotokos. She's just a other Theotokos, just the better Theotokos, because now it's all straightened out. Now you can take Jews, Christians, and Muslims under one roof, and that Theotokos now works out beautifully for the lineage that will come. There's a single source for this logic. That's the Geonim in the Academies with the Babylonian Talmud. The Quran reflects a more advanced form of the Christian Theotokos, in which all Davidic kings of the Jews come down through Miriam because they are born in the temple. The authors of the Quran wrapped the Babylonian concept of Miriam around Mary of the Gospels. It is precisely because of the absence of Miriam in Mary of the Gospels that Jews rejected the Christian version of Jesus. Herod's wife Mariam is a Miriam Mary, is directly tied to the construction of Herod's temple and was the last with direct Hasmonean descent from Alexander Jannaeus. The only route for the Hasmonean royal lineage was through Herod's wife Mariamne. The only route for Prophet Muhammad's Hashim is through Herod's wife Mariam. Josephus tells us that Herod's grandson Agrippa had been venerated as a god in Jewish thought that can only refer to a nature of God, hence a Christ God in shining armor, a son of God. Okay, so that's for Miriam.
Okay.
And that's how the lineages are coming back together. When we work on these lineages, everyone who researches those lineages must wonder, why don't we have these readily available? Why can't we just pick them off the shelf? We have the best educated people in the world. There's no history 200 years before the advent of proto-Islam. There's no history 200 years after proto-Islam. It's not just Islam that doesn't have a history. Judaism doesn't have a history at that time either. And the reason is clear, because they overlap. So they wiped out as much as they could. So that's why we only have fragmented information, because we're not supposed to be able to piece these things together. We're not supposed to, as Christians, see the relationship between the founders of Christianity and the founders of Islam and the founders of Judaism, notably. Okay, we're not supposed to see those, because once Judaism loses control of that religion, like once it lost control of Christianity, it had to wipe out that it ever had control. And that's why we have this repositioning of things.
Okay.
So here we have the family, the Hasmonean family tree, and I just need to point out here where Herod the Great stands, right here at the bottom left. There's Herod the Great with Mariamne, right? Herod kills Aristobulus. He was the last male heir of the Hasmonean family tree. We need to understand what that makes out of Herod. Like, Herod is basically vilified as only half Jew or no Jew or whatever. He's an Edomite. Of course, every Edomite is a Jew just as much as a Jew is a Jew, but that's what they say. But what happens here is when Herod and Mariamne come together, their offspring is now the Hasmonean family tree. And only their offspring is now the Hasmonean family tree, because there is none other. Everything else died out. So we have to be hugely aware of that.
So that's one of the bottlenecks that you mentioned. This is
absolutely.
The key bottleneck. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So a lot of these Jewish leaders have this mysterious upbringing where they're coming from. So we have Antipater the Idumean, and then we kind of have Antipas. We don't know who he is. We don't know where they're coming from. We can piece it all back together now if we have the bigger picture, how that works. And we'll see a little bit of that, not too much. And there's only so much that we know, and so much that we still have to learn about that. So if we go a little bit deeper there, let me just quickly. So we have Herod here on the top, right? So that's where the family tree keeps on going. If you just follow down here, just one after the other, Alexander II, Gaius Julius, and Gaius Julius, and Gaius Julius Agrippa, Lucius Julius Gaius Fabius Agrippa, is Pontifex Maximus. You know a little bit of Roman history?
Not so much. Probably not enough to know the significance there of this.
Okay, so that's why you can't just study the 7th century. You have to literally study the entire history across the globe and try to absorb it and see how these things work and how they fit together. Pontifex Maximus is a synonym for the emperor. Now, the emperor had the role of the Pontifex Maximus. That was his role, to be the Pontifex Maximus. Till Constantine, at least. Constantine was still Pontifex Maximus, and some others later would still say there would be Pontifex Maximus was a little bit more difficult than when Christianity was on the map. The only reason why I'm pointing this out is we're dealing with the utmost echelons of the societal hierarchy. We're not dealing with a Jewish minority that has no say. When we look at the Jewish diaspora and the Jewish leadership, wherever something happens in the world, wherever a catastrophe happens, whatever, Jews were nowhere to be seen, nowhere. There's not a single emperor of Jews. Why? They're the educated people. They should constitute at least half of the emperors. But instead, we have no emperor. There's no Jewish emperor. Doesn't make sense. So they're wiping this history out. I'm not saying there were Jewish emperors. I'm just pointing out that the Pontifex Maximus is either the emperor himself or the second highest position in the Roman Empire. It's pretty significant that a Jew of all people, after the Jewish-Roman wars, would be able to become Pontifex Maximus should I say, alarming for researchers in proto-Islam? I think so. Okay. I go a little bit deeper here. If you go to the other side, we have Tiberius Julius Alexander. He was the procurator of Judea and the prefect of Egypt. If you're a prefect of Egypt, you're the highest authority in Egypt. So we're talking about the highest echelons, right? But here comes the kicker. This Tiberius is Titus the second in command in the assault on the Temple Mount. How does that make sense? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, if I'm understanding correctly, why would someone with Jewish connections attack the Temple Mount?
Yes. Yes.
Right. Yeah. That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit together. And that's as far as I know and as far as I'm going, as to say it doesn't make sense. But I go that step further and say we need to focus on the top echelon. We cannot focus on the people. The people are completely irrelevant. We need to understand these lineages, how they worked. If you were of the right blood, you were in, and we can say here that Jewish blood was in the top echelons. So the whole thing, the whole fog for us comes up a little bit. I wrote this in a paper of mine. I actually just threw this together yesterday for you because I think it structures our talk a little bit more when I can bring about these fundamentals that we need to start to understand proto-Islam. So the first master paradox is that world history, since long before Christ, reads something like this: wherever economic, political, or religious action took place, the only ethnic group that maintained a global network of ultra-loyal connections, were highly educated, and were genius with money and leadership skills, had nothing to do with it. That's how history reads. The leaders who brought us Judaism, Christianity, Maccanism, Reform Zoroastrianism, and Islam, sorry to say those like this, if not more, washed their hands in piety. These leaders and their unsuspecting followers, including Jews, were persecuted indefinitely for no reason at all other than for believing in their God. Anybody who dares to ask why is shouted down as anti-Semite. And I say there's a solution to this. It's organized crime. And the organized crime is depriving us from understanding how these things really fit together.
Can I just, if I may bring in a modern parallel? There's lots of talk these days with the weird relationship between Putin and Trump. Okay, and the suggestion is that the only explanation for the strange behavior of Trump, who should be on the Ukrainian side, is that there's money passing hands, and there's cryptocurrency where money goes in and money goes out, and things are not clear, and there's what's the word for it? family members. What's the word for that when you have family members in your administration? Nepotism. You have all of that kind of going on. So that's on the American side, and then on Putin's side, you have nepotism, and you have essentially a mafia come state in operation, the most powerful mafia in the world, where trillions are taken from the economy. So what I'm seeing here in the modern world seems to be a parallel to what you're describing. So it's not unexpected that money is such a big driver in human behavior that behind all the piety, let's say, when it comes down to it, it's basically money is driving the actions of people, which is your thesis, I think.
Well, you're sending me down the rabbit hole there, but okay, I go there.
Sorry,
I go there.
Sorry for that.
I go there, and I beg you not to take offense. It's just factual. Adolf Hitler was enabled mainly by the Protestant unity for the promise to get power through Hitler. That doesn't offend you, it offends all Protestants. Okay. That is established by research that without the support of the Protestants, Hitler would have never made it. Now, before we get to Trump, I need to just do a little link for the Protestants. The Catholics didn't go with Adolf Hitler because they were in power. Okay, so we need to be a little bit careful there and whom to blame. But without the Christian support, a strong Christian support, Hitler would have never made it. The parallel here is that without the evangelical support in the United States, Donald J. Trump would have not made it the first time, and he certainly would have not made it the second time. Actually, I don't understand the second time after the people have seen it for the first time, but the promise of power seems to have been too strong.
Yeah, I think we'll, rather than continue down this rabbit hole, let's get back onto the main thing. Would this be a good point to kind of go into some questions, or have a little bit more to?
We're actually coming to
key
these lineages and to the Messianic chain.
Okay.
In just a little bit. Okay.
Okay, no problem.
To what I just said, that Jews had nothing to do with anything. Tudela tells us that the treasury of the Vatican in Rome was in the hands of Jewish leaders. It doesn't make any sense. We can't just let it sit there, right? We have to understand the economic implication, and I'm trying to make that understood how that works. I go a little bit deeper into this pre-Messianic lineage here, where this is coming down. So we have here the Agrippas, Herod of Chalcis, okay, and we see a little coin over here. Herod of Chalcis, who ruled the territory north of Judea. On a coin, both brothers crown Emperor Claudius. On the obverse, the coin says King Herod, King Agrippa, Claudius Augustus Caesar, and on the reverse, we get clarity about who is being crowned. It reads for Claudius Caesar Augustus, year 3. Jewish leaders crowned Claudius, and we're just letting it sit. Right? Herod Agrippa II arrives in Colonia. So the royal lineage arrives on the Rhineland, basically.
Yeah.
Berenice here marries Marcus Julius Alexander, the son of the Alabarch in Alexandria. The Alabarch is the ruler in Egypt. He's the tax farmer in Egypt. He's a Jewish tax farmer in Egypt. So we have a well as established evidence that we are dealing with the highest ranks and we're not dealing with some minority that has no say. We are deeply intertwined with royalty, not just in Persia, not just in Egypt, but also in Europe, in the Roman Empire. So we have to have our eyes open, but nobody seems to have done that research deeper that we would have any answers. Right now, I only have questions. I don't have actually answers for this. Where I have a little more answers is now here in the Messianic lineage. So here we have Martsutra the First. We see that I get that pointer up there. Up there, we have Martsutra the First. He's a Muhammad Marnuna. And here we have Martsutra the Second. And I'm going to go into Martsutra the Second a little bit more. Martsutra the Second, and then it goes through the 32nd Exilarch Hophni. Like the 32nd Exilarch Hophni is Hashim Abchams. So it's at the end of the 6th century, and that's where Elia bar Kapsha is coming from. Elia bar Kapsha being the 35th Exilarch, Hushiel Umayyah. He's the Exilarch Hushiel. He's also Umayyah ibn Absham, and from him comes the Exilarch Nehemiah ben Hushiel. I guess we have been speaking about Nehemiah ben Hushiel before. He's the guy who sacked the Temple Mount and reinstated in Israel the ritual sacrifices on the Temple Mount. His brother is Salman al-Farisi, read Farisi, right? He's not just any name, it's Farisi. It's not Farsi, it's Farisi. He's the 37th Exilarch. He's Hanamel, Shalom. So it's hugely important that we understand these lineages, how they come together. And on the other side of Hophni, we have the Bustanai lineage. Where's my pointer? Right here, down here. We have the Exilarch Bustanai, who is Umar or Amr al-As or Asmiktos. We see him in the evidence coming. So this is important for us to understand that when we start working with these lineages, that we actually can start to put the leadership together, and we see the chain, how it's opening up, and we see how the division is opening up within the very same family tree. That's Bostanai and Ben Hushiel. These are the two family trees, it's respectively Salman al-Farisi, his brother.
Yeah.
So Elia bar Kapsha is the one who would make it into tradition as the Muhammad who united the Arab Peninsula. He's not the Muhammad, he's a Muhammad in the chain of Muhammads. He's also the Jewish Exilarch Hushiel, that we see here with the green arrow in the lineage. He's a son of the Exilarch Hophni in the red arrow, and himself grandson of Martsutra II. He's the Muhammad on the 6th century Dunuvas inscription in Yemen. So here things start to come together, right? Here we can see that when you do this big picture approach, now these things are coming together, where these puzzle stones all of a sudden fit into a narrative where we can start to understand how this all might work. Hophni is also father of Hushiel's brother Exilarch Haninai, aka Alas, father of Amr ibn Alas, aka Umar, aka Exilarch Bustanai in the pink arrow there. The first gown of Surah in the new Jewish era of the Geonim. What we failed to understand is that in 590, a new era of Geonim started, where the whole Jewish organization was supposed to be revamped in a different way. Hushiel is also the father of the Messiah ben Joseph on the Temple Mount in 614-17. Nehemiah ben Hushiel, that's the yellow arrow there. They were Arabizing their Aramaic, Hebrew, Persian, or Pahlavi names, or were given honorific names similar to naming conventions for popes, for example. While these dynastic aspirations tend to branch out because of their sons that they have and their daughters, the clashes over the supreme spiritual leadership between the branches of Hushiel and Haninai constitute the main ingredient to Islam's divisions that continue to this day between Sunnis and Shia. Can you follow me so far?
Yeah, it'd be nice for you to explain which group are the Sunni and which are the Shia. You know, where's the? I presume it's to do with the political structures that they prefer. One is focusing on a kind of a Sanhedrin type of ruling, I presume.
Yeah. The first Umayyad group belongs to what we call the Sunnis. Then with As-Subayr and Abd al-Malik, we're in Shia territory, and the rest we have to figure out. They're not as clear cut as we might think. We have to go one after the other, and figure out how they all fit. So we're ready to go to Muhammad, to Messianism. I think we got a really big picture approach here that gives us some idea in how we need to look at this. To understand that there are two. There's the Messiah ben David, that would be the anointed one, that would be Jesus. But then there's the Messiah ben Joseph from Messiah, the deceiver,